Would you recommend lifting the retirement age to 70?
What we are now encouraging now is to maybe stop thinking about the retirement age,
Uh-huh.
but set a pension access age so that
Uh-huh.
people can start thinking about accessing pension at this age. But it should not be given as a hurdle where if this comes, you have to retire. That you might retire from your, a formal position, but you will still be working on, a certain basis, or you would have multiple jobs so that it's not that you're jumping off the cliff at the, 65 to say you don't work anymore. No more retirement age, but pension access age is something we're
Pension access
recommending in
age.
the report. Yeah.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Aiko Kikkawa. I'm a senior economist at the Asian Development Bank, and I'm the lead author of the recently published report called The Aging Well in Asia, which looks at the well-being of older persons in our member countries.
I'm 71 years old, Aiko san.
Yeah, you're a very good example.
And one of the complaints of senior citizens here in the Philippines is the fact that the pensions system is not really that aligned with the expenses that we incur during our the aging process. There is so much to be desired in terms of pension arrangements. In your study, actually, it will show that a lot of people, especially in the lower strata of society, do not have pensions. Those of us who are, aging in that particular sector have to bear with cost of medical and other expenses.
Mhm.
How do you make that balance, between
Yeah.
taking care of the older guys and the requirements for development?
As our study really shows, about 40% of the older people in Asia do not have any type of pension, be it even like allowance type, like old age allowance type, or the work-related pension. So Philippine is really not alone. And actually, Philippine, if you take SSS into consideration, the pension coverage rate is not is I think it's a bit slightly higher than some other countries. But I think you're mentioning more about the amount, adequacy, right, for
Yeah,
people
yeah,
with
that's
old
right.
age pensions. I think that that's where the middle income countries would have to start looking at younger population and really encourage them to start saving at much younger age so that they would have sufficient accumulations. I think Philippines now has quite a viable financial market, so government would then have to switch from pay as you go type of scheme to really invest this fund and grow it so that they would have sufficient reserve to pay out at the old age. So that system needs a long time of development and also expertise. But for example, government scheme has a very good fund, right? Who would be investing quite successfully and so on. So I think those mechanisms have to be put in place.
Corporates, for example, like insurance companies, they discriminate against seniors, because at a certain age you no longer can qualify for insurance, or even healthcare. Is that part of your recommendations? I mean, even corporates should be involved in this scheme of helping people age well.
We are supporting more of idea of a universal health coverage because corporation or corporate insurance alone cannot bear this type of risks. It's a mass risks, which risks can only be mitigated with broader based solutions, healthier population. So yes, that maybe some encouragement can be made on the side of the insurance, but they would just go with the viability of that financial product. So that's very hard. So our really suggestion would be to move with universal coverage, and that the coverage of the universal service would gradually expand to cover some of the major lifestyle diseases and the maintenance of that. so that older person do not have to take out a huge sum from their own pocket. And others would also come to the cost of care, right? The long-term care, where you would probably have to spend equal amount of money, or sometimes even more, when you're unable to perform daily activities. So that part also need insurance. Good asset Philippines have is a very strong family structures. So they really do not want to break that. They really want to support the families so that families can support its own members. It's too late if it's broken. So really start investing from now to encourage uh, this family support system. Things like that will be quite important.
Would you recommend a model for, let's say, the Philippines, in the region? Which model would you recommend that we adopt, or at least learn from?
I would also encourage not looking at the current state. So if you say, okay, Japan has a very good coverage of the pension health system, but we cannot emulate that model, it'll be, it'll be future goals. So if you look at, for example, Japan, it started its pension system in, I think, 1960, so quite early on. Even when Japan is just came out from the war and recovery, they started the pension system, foresight. Also, because now countries like Philippines have a much different picture. Just to give one example is the informality of work and also an increase in the gig workers, platform workers. These people do not have pensions. And how we do that is actually a global challenge. Now, different countries are modeling different ways, like imposing employers still like the contractor to pay, or that it would be automatically deducted, or they open a G cash or those kind of electric account where it's easy to transfer. They might also give matching funds. So if you give this amount, the government will give you this amount. Really encourage. We sometimes actually draw example from Latin American countries where some incomes are similar, but they do some progressive tax uh, initiatives like collecting it. They're, for example, experimenting. If you buy things, they would automatically deduct like a VAT, but put it into your pension account. It's called,
Hmm.
a consumption-based, pension. It's still an idea, but it's now emanating from Latin America, and there are a few interesting initiatives like that. So it's really cherry picking on where it's good. So I would think that you don't want to say this is the models, but what works for the Philippines. And there are so many examples that you can draw from. And I think many organizations would be very happy to, support Philippines in that initiative.
You probably watch the so-called Blue Zones feature in Netflix. Is that Netflix? Blue Zones. The Blue
Yeah,
Zones is,
yes. Where older person live longer, that one?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. We haven't particularly looked at the specific areas, but I personally actually lived in Okinawa myself, where one
Huh?
of the blue zones, I believe, their community network is very strong, and that's very rare in Japan, where those preservation is still, very strong. And what that helps is that neighbors check on each others, and they would help each other when they need uh, these community groups, and that's quite important. And if you look at our analysis, like determinants of the depression, determinants of the lack of the care, self-rated health, many of these things have a lot to do with how much social network or strength of the human network that all the person have. So the opposite is the isolation, right? And the loneliness. And that's actually loneliness is actually the uh, determinant of depression, along with the
Okay.
bad health. So
Yeah.
I would think those, at least from our research, those social network and community strength are important. And that's also related to how family can support the older person. So uh, Philippines definitely has that maintain that in many areas. And it's very important that government and the community would foster that. How to do it in the settings, like for some areas they would give support the caregivers talk to each other, or they would send what they call a respite care. So the caregiver can take some rest. So in the Philippines, I believe people used to have multiple siblings who can support, but now only one sibling stays and others working in Manilas and Cebu's. So this person is very stressed. That's the modern aging, modern style of the care. So it would be good for a local authority to have like a care center hub where they can send like alternative caregiver for a few hours or half a day, or have that person join the daycare service so that the person can rest, and that would really maintain the care system and provision in much more sustainable ways. So there are ways to support or give some trainings on how to give proper care to older person, because those are not something you can just get. It's almost like taking care of the baby. Sometimes you need the technical and professional knowledge. So those are the kind of things that some communities are doing. ADB is piloting it in countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, Mongolia. So it would be good for Philippines to consider.
The so-called silver dividend. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Silver dividend in particular is that of the older person. They are better educated. The education years improvement over the past years is just so amazing. The current old, many of them are illiterate or have primary education, will be replaced by high school education, university education. That would bring the country's productivity levels to next scale. And that contribution is huge. But unfortunately, many countries are letting workers go at that certain age and not profiting. Second is the health. We did recently a study to see how improvement in health contribute to the additional years of work. And we can calculate that at least just among the older people, there's an extension of health capacity to work by over 2 years. So now people, compared to 10 years ago, people can work longer. Cultivating their knowledge, skills, experience, and perhaps more of a mentoring power that older person have, leverage that with the health. That's where a country can gain. But just tapping this untapped resource of older person who are healthy enough to work but not working, some country earn up to 2% of GDP
Oh,
just by tapping this workforce. So that's a very significant amount. 2% increase. So we want to make sure that we're not saying all the person should work longer, but all the
yeah.
person who are willing and interested to work
Yeah.
should be given enough space, and also pension system that does not disqualify them from that, but they can still draw and work. And many other discrimination has to go. Then the country would be in a good position to earn from silver dividend.
In the Philippines, 65 is the retirement age. Would you recommend lifting the retirement age to 70?
What we are now encouraging now is to maybe stop thinking about the retirement age,
Uh-huh.
but set a minimum or a floor of pension access age, so that
Uh-huh.
people can start thinking about accessing pension at this age. But it should not be given as a hurdle where if this comes, you have to retire. It really, it's this concept of retirement should be much more phased, that you might retire from your, a formal position, but you will still be working on, a certain basis, or you would have multiple jobs, you would have different consultant jobs, but some phased manner, so that it's not that you're jumping off the cliff at the, 65 to say you don't work anymore, but
Yeah.
really phased. So no more retirement age, but pension access age is something we're
Pension access
recommending in
age.
the report. Yeah.
So, AI, so there's a lot of concern about AI taking away jobs, not even from younger people, so, and how do you think it would affect people like those who are in their 65, and because they have to adapt to the technology and
Yeah. So we say there are two different sort of intelligence. One is, we call it fluid intelligence, and other is a crystallized intelligence. And what the AI does is fluid, rapid calculation, get everything. This is what you say. Here you go. There's a crystal intelligence, which is more like you based on experience. You have a good human communications. You have a lot more elaborate vocabularies and way to express yourself and engage with people, and also good in observing and mentoring. So there are some, literature suggesting that older person would have less of this AI type of fluency, but more experience based that are
Yeah,
better in the human communications and
that's right.
mentoring.
Yeah, yeah.
So of course there are some jobs that would be easily, replaced with AI, but the older person would still have this crystallized intelligence part that they can really cultivate, although we do have to try to cultivate over the years of life course.